My family and food is my passion, and shopping for the very best fresh ingredients is what makes all the difference. Join me as we go on a journey of heartwarming food filled with mouth-watering dishes, bound to get those taste buds tingling. Welcome to my kitchen.
Dinner parties are all about wowing your guests without taking hours and hours to prepare. Today we're going to be making a dinner party for Saturday with Mediterranean tartlets, a fresh basil and lime salmon, a sweet and spicy Malay beef curry casserole served with Israeli couscous, and to finish it all, a dessert of vanilla gelato with a delicious, creamy, rich chocolate sauce. So let's get started with our beef curry casserole. What we're using today is flour to coat our beef. We're using rump cubes, beautiful thick ones. We need to fry some onion and garlic in a little bit of oil. And then our sauce is apricot jam, curry powder, a bit of Worcester sauce, some chutney, and some tomato and onion mix, and a squeeze of lemon juice. I've got some pre-cooked chunky vegetables which will go in later, carrots, sweet potato, butternut, and some parsnip, and a few baby marrows. And of course we need stock because this is going to cook for quite a long time until that meat softens. So we need to preheat the pot with a little bit of oil. So we want to just coat the meat, literally just give it a nice coating of flour. Now the hotter the pot the better, because your meat will be so brown that it seals in the flavor and gives it a really, really beautiful color. And that's the secret to a casserole. Sealing the meat, giving it lots of color initially, and not just giving it just a little bit. And leave it. Don't even turn it for a good few minutes until it's really, really gorgeous and golden on the one side. Right, one side's beautifully golden, got gorgeous color. I'm turning them. So now what's left to do is brown the onion with a bit of garlic and some oil. My onions have softened. I'm going to add a little bit of salt just to give them some flavor. And then everything goes back into the pot. Meat first, tomato and onion mix, chutney, some apricot jam, a mild curry powder, some Worcester sauce, and a little squeeze of lemon to balance out the flavors. Now we need to add the stock, because you need a lot of liquid here. This meat has to cook for a good 2 to 3 hours, and if it doesn't have enough liquid, it's just going to stick to the bottom of the pot, and I need it to get really, really tender. So there's quite a lot of stock covering the meat. I need to stir this a couple of times while it's cooking, because with the flour on the meat, it might catch at the bottom. But we cover it, turn it down to low, and let it just simmer. We're adding the baby marrows for the last 10 minutes of cooking, and they're going to go in uncooked because they take so little time. I'm cutting them into big chunks. My meat's been cooking for about 2.5 hours. It feels perfect. So all there's left to do is add these vegetables for the last 10 minutes of cooking. It's still on a simmer. They're all pre-cooked except for the zucchini, which will cook in that 10 minutes. Give it a stir and let it coat the vegetables with that beautiful sauce. And the sauce is really thickened and it's coating the meat as well. It's got the most fabulous aroma. I've got curry and a little bit of sweetness, and this is the stage where you want to test it for taste and see if it needs any seasoning, because it would have changed from the beginning to now. Even though I added stock, it might need a bit of salt, it might need a little bit of pepper. I think it just needs some pepper. It doesn't need any salt at all, especially because when it reduces, the taste intensifies. It may look complicated, but it's anything but. Now that our Cape Malay beef curry casserole is done, we'll make an Israeli couscous to go with it, and some Mediterranean tartlets, and a fresh basil and lime salmon, and finish off with an indulgent, creamy vanilla bean gelato with a decadent chocolate sauce. And don't forget, you can get these recipes on the Home Channel website. Don't go away. Saturday nights are made for dinner parties, and that's what we are particularly good at. We've already made a Cape Malay beef curry casserole, and we're going to make some pearl couscous to go with it. Later on, some Mediterranean tartlets, and a fresh basil and lime salmon, finishing off with a classic vanilla bean gelato and a chocolate sauce. So let's get started with the couscous. This is different from regular couscous. Unlike regular couscous, this needs a little bit of cooking, and it's got much more texture, so it'll go perfectly with my curry casserole. To a half a cup of couscous, you need 2 cups of water, which is 1 to 4. We've added some oil to the pot. I need a little bit of salt, and this couscous needs quite a lot of flavoring, so don't be shy to give it a nice flavor. It needs about 11 to 12 minutes to cook, and you want to let all the water evaporate before you take it out the pot, and even let it steam with the lid on for a little while afterwards in order to soften those granules. I've already made some just to show you what it looks like when it's finished, and it looks exactly like little pearls. They're quite delicious, a little bit different, and not so fine like normal couscous. So normal couscous you wouldn't cook at all. This needs to be cooked for about 11 to 12 minutes. The couscous is gorgeous and golden and toasted. So now I'm going to add some water. I have got boiling water, so I just need to watch it doesn't cook too fast. Give it a good stir. I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to move it to a smaller plate so that it just simmers on a low heat. So let's get started with our Mediterranean tarts while the couscous is simmering. We've got some puff pastry, some little baby rosa tomatoes, pitted Kalamata olives, some fresh basil, and some Parmesan cheese, and a drizzle of olive oil. You don't really want to roll it out too much because I like the thickness. It gives you a lovely base. So unroll it. Put it onto a liner, and it's already in a rectangular shape. So what we're going to do is cut the tomatoes in half and just dot them on here. Cut side up, because otherwise the juice is going to make the puff pastry soggy. But it's casual food, simple food that doesn't require much effort, and that's what entertaining should be. Now for our olives. Also, just scatter them on the pastry. Cut them in half. So we're going to cut through the tart, just gently, I don't want to cut my liner, so I'm going to cut this into 3, then again down the middle this way. So I'm breaking the puff pastry, and what's on it will just puff around it, just to separate them, like that. Okay, a little drizzle of olive oil, very little, a little bit of salt and pepper, and we're going to put this in the oven on 200 degrees for about 20 minutes. They're golden, puffy, and perfect. So I'm ready to plate them. It's as simple as that. They just need a little bit of Parmesan shavings and some fresh basil. By cutting them, you can see that they're separated beautifully when they're baked. So we can put them onto a platter. Right, that's perfect. So let's do a little shaving of Parmesan. And of course the fresh basil just finishes it off. And whenever I make these, they seem to go down so well, and everyone wants to know how long it took you to make them, and you can tell them it was quite simple, really easy, and no time at all. Casual, but simple, but stylish. Let's check the couscous. What I've done is left it in the pot to steam. It's been about 15 minutes, and it looks like it's absolutely perfect. It's fluffy, they are little pearls, and we can put them into our serving dish. Now this is a nice accompaniment for the Malay beef curry. It's quite different for a change. Instead of doing rice or potatoes or the usual couscous, because it's got such beautiful texture. And when we come back, we'll be making some fresh basil and lime salmon and finishing off with a delicious vanilla bean gelato and chocolate sauce. And if you love these recipes, you can get them on the Home Channel website. Don't go away. Keeping it simple and stylish for a dinner party is the theme of our show today. And we've already made Mediterranean tartlets, a Malay beef curry casserole, some couscous to go with it, and now the star of the show is the basil and lime salmon, and later we'll finish with a vanilla bean gelato and a chocolate sauce. So let's get started with our salmon. I've got some beautiful fresh salmon today, fresh basil, some mayonnaise, chives for decoration, some limes, and a whole grain mustard. We're going to prepare a sauce to put onto the salmon with some fresh limes and some fresh basil. The salmon's got the skin on, and that holds the whole dish together. So whether you use a whole fish or fillets of fish, ask for it with the skin on. So we want to mix the mayonnaise and the mustard together in a bowl. I'm going to add some lime rind to this. It adds lots of flavor, and I love limes because they're not too strong in taste. So generally about 3 scrapes on your microplane, and by doing this, when I actually put the slices inside the salmon, I'm not going to get any bitterness from the lime itself. Now we're going to shred a little bit of basil, some salt and pepper. We're going to give that a good stir. Salmon is one of those fish that doesn't need a long time in the oven. But when you put 2 fillets together, they will take a little bit longer. So what I've prepared is some baking paper and some foil, because we're sealing the whole thing. The fish is going to go onto the baking paper, and I've pre-sprayed this with a little bit of non-stick spray just to ensure that the skin does not stick, because I'm not putting any sauce at the bottom. I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of lime juice over it before I put the sauce on. So I'm putting some gloves on because handling fish leaves quite a lovely smell on your hands. Beautiful, fresh, firm fillets. We want to squeeze some lime juice over it. And underneath. That's perfect. Now we're going to spread some of our sauce on the fish. And this is going to give you beautiful flavor. And be quite generous with it, because that's where your flavor comes from. It's going to cover the fillet and keep the moisture in. Mayonnaise is one of those sauces. It might be a little bit full in fat, but it really does retain lots and lots of moisture. Okay, so I'm going to use this one to slice, because I don't want that rind. Just lay some slices of lime on top of the fish, like that. And then we're going to close it with the other side, and I'm putting two sides together, so thick side and thin side, and this side I'm putting thick and thin, so that they're absolutely even when they cook. A little bit of sauce on the outside. And then we want to squeeze a little bit of lime juice on the outside as well. Salt here. So we want to close the baking paper over first, like that. Seal it a little bit, because otherwise it's going to stick to the foil. And then I'll put this piece on top. And close the whole thing up to encase the salmon. Now my oven's preheated to about 190, maybe 200 degrees. Put this on a baking tray. And it's quite well sealed, so you can see I've given it sides to hold the juices that might come out of the salmon, but that paper will also hold it as well. And in we go, middle rack of the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes. Let's make the chocolate sauce for our ice cream. So I've got the most decadent chocolate here, dark chocolate and milk chocolate, and of the highest quality, and a little bit of cream. There's nothing nicer than ending your meal off with something quite as rich as this. So we want to heat the cream first in a pot, because just by heating it, that chocolate will melt, so I don't really need to boil it on the stove. The vanilla bean is very expensive, but you are only going to use the seeds that come from inside. And when you're finished, we want to use that skin in our caster sugar, in our ordinary sugar, to give it beautiful, beautiful flavor. So we're going to cut it down the center. A fresh vanilla bean is always soft, so you shouldn't have a problem cutting it. And you want to scrape those seeds out. So you're really going to just use a very sharp knife to get those beautiful seeds out, and that is the essence of the vanilla pod. So my cream is boiling. I'm going to take it off the stove, and I'm going to stir the chocolate in. And it should melt almost immediately from the heat of the cream. And you can have this ready, so all you have to do is warm it up to pour over the chocolate or serve it on the side. And it's about 100 grams of chocolate, of each kind of chocolate, milk and dark, to a half a cup of cream. And there we have it. A beautiful, rich, absolutely decadent chocolate sauce. So now for the ice cream. All we have to do is add the vanilla to the ice cream. And you need to do this ahead of time so that your ice cream can reset a little bit before you use it. Scrape your vanilla beans in there and just give it a good mix. So now it's ready to serve. We'll get our salmon out of the oven, put this back in the freezer and serve it a bit later. I'm sure it's done. The taste of the salmon is when you pierce it with a fork and the fork goes right through, you know that it's cooked completely. So I'm pulling back that baking paper. It's got the most amazing smell, and there's lots of beautiful juice at the bottom here. Right, so we pierce it, and as you can see, the fork is going through perfectly. Salmon should always be a little bit underdone anyway when it comes out of the oven, because by the time you get it to the platter, by the time you get it to the table, it will continue cooking, and it should be just that little bit underdone. Okay, that's perfect. So some slices of lime on top. A bit of basil around the edges. And some chives from my garden, just for a little bit of decoration. So it's full of flavor. It's a simple dish. So we want to end off the meal with this delicious ice cream. Of gorgeous chocolate sauce. I'm sure you'll agree that there's something for everyone in this menu. Our delicious Mediterranean tarts, our Cape Malay beef curry with pearl couscous, our fresh basil and lime salmon, and finishing off with a creamy, indulgent vanilla bean gelato and chocolate sauce. Please join me next week where I'll give you some great ideas for a lazy Sunday evening, including ricotta gnocchi, a vegetarian pasta, rice paper wraps, some salmon carpaccio with a mango salsa. It's a show you don't want to miss.